don't want to go back to the other one. Hello and welcome to Filling in the Gaps. I am Justin.
And I'm Darren.
And this is a podcast where we try to talk about puzzle games and plot holes. And today we will be discussing another JJ Abrams. We talked about the Mystery Box and the TED Talk already.
Yep.
And today we're going to be talking about Super 8.
Mm.
What's your overall take on Super 8?
I hadn't seen it, and you told me to go and see it.
But you had never seen it before.
I'd heard of it, but I'd never got around to watching it. And yeah, I watched it, and I know you've got some issues with it, but I actually really enjoyed it.
Well, I think that's good in a way, though I'm not. That may not even really have an episode then. I will say this: I watched it twice,
right,
in preparation for this episode, and what I'm finding is what I'm going to start referring to perhaps as the Abrams effect,
right,
where things are not really great, but the more you watch them, the less you notice the bad things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, perhaps. I don't know. I think, for example, if I was to go back and watch Lost, any of the major mysteries that never get answered, or that I feel don't get answered, well, I know they're not going to get answered. I'm no longer be speculating.
I understand what you mean, yeah.
And I feel like he creates these mystery boxes, and then once you know that that's all they are, then on repeat viewings, they bother you less.
Right.
And I would say that has happened for me with Super 8. I would say that the first time I was absolutely just really, really irritated with it, which is part of the reason why I suggested we do this. Mm-hmm. I watched it a second time and I was still pretty irritated. But by the third viewing, it was just kind of a meh. It didn't really matter anymore. Like, these things didn't matter as much. I will still say there's a lot of convenience that seems to happen, and I would argue some inconsistencies.
Right.
But I'm not sure if there's as much plot hole as I thought there was on watching it like through the third time.
Right, yeah.
But again, I'm no longer trying to figure it out. I know what I'm going to be told, and I know what I'm not going to be told. And some things, honestly, I guess I don't need to be told, but it just kind of makes it feel like magic. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, honestly, especially when it comes to science fiction. Now, this is coming from someone who loves the original Star Wars, and the Force essentially felt like magic in those.
Right, yeah.
Before they started to introduce
science
to explain it.
Yeah.
So I understand that it's not magic, but from a storytelling standpoint, it feels like magic.
What, in Super 8? Or
in a number of things that he does. I would say in Lost, there were a number of things that made it seem like, oh, it's magic, and that's why. I would say in this one, kind of magic, but not why. Kind of, well, it's alien, and that's why.
Right, yeah,
So that's kind of what we're getting at. So I don't know, by my third viewing, if we had this episode recorded after I watched it the first time, or even maybe the second time, I would have been much more kind of angry about it. And now I just feel kind of apathetic, I guess, about it. I still don't think it's a great movie. Mm. And that's kind of what I want to get into today.
Right.
But if you want to play devil's advocate and you want to say that it's wonderful, go right ahead. However, I don't think you go quite that far.
It was, I mean, what I got out of it is and that's kind of a dumb cliche, but it is what it is. And it's a kind of a popcorn stab at a 2000 remake of The Goonies, and it's kind of a happy, bit dark, kids. I thought it was really kids movie to me.
It is. I think it's interesting that you reference it to Goonies. I have another friend who references it to E.T. He says it's their E.T., which I disagree with, but
which is a story about divorce, of course.
Okay. Referencing last episode. So, I don't think so, because E.T. is about character development and about development of the relationship between characters. Whereas I don't think that we have that as much in this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
In particularly with
the alien.
Yeah, in this one, there's not much, which I'm going to get to. That gets kind of right towards the end, though.
Spoilers, the alien wants to go home. Yes.
Well, let's just warn everyone now. Probably from this point on, there's going to be lots of spoilers. We'll also be talking a bit, probably, I feel anyway, referencing Stranger Things, but not in any sort of plot spoiler way. More just the feel of it, I think. At least the things that I might mention.
Yeah.
So they won't really... You can certainly listen to this without having watched Stranger Things. But if you haven't watched Stranger Things, watch Stranger Things.
Why haven't you watched Stranger Things?
Please do. I would definitely recommend it. Let's talk a bit about the opening of the movie. Because the opening of the movie I thought was really solid. And I really felt like I was in for something. I think that that's part of the problem too. I often feel that JJ Abrams is a great ideas person. He has fantastic ideas, and they start off his TV shows, his movies. They start off really well and really interesting, and they're kind of interesting characters and dynamics going on, and then things fall apart for me. So right away, there's the opening scene where you see how many days since an accident, and it goes to should have gone to 0. I don't know why they went to 1.
Because, yeah, maybe it was...
Were they waiting till the next day to change it?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they took the day off for the funeral and then they went back, so that's a whole day passed or something, yeah?
Maybe. And I thought that was pretty powerful. It leads to the wake. Though I do think there's a really odd comment from, I believe it's Charlie's mom. I don't know essentially how they're going to work things out because Jack's never been a father before. I got really confused by that comment because he is Joe's father.
Yeah, he is.
But what do you mean he's never been a father before? So were they divorced before? Were they separated? It seems like...
I just picked up on it like he was always working, he was never home, the mum took care of him all the time.
I think that's what was intended, but in my head, I just couldn't get over the idea of, but he had to have been there, at least somewhat, right?
Yeah.
To say he's never been a father before, what, is he his uncle who's going to step in and take care of him? Because that totally confused me, and then realized, no, that didn't matter. So I just feel like there is a better way to word that so that it would make more sense. We get the essence that Joe's mother was crushed in some sort of accident.
Yeah. Which
gets referenced a few times. Which I guess we don't really need to know exactly what happened. I kind of want to, in a way. I just kind of want to, what exactly happened? You're just saying, oh, she got crushed. Yeah, well, that seems like a pretty major thing. How did that actually happen? But I guess it's not important.
It's not important, yeah.
Lewis shows up, and Lewis is he's drunk through quite a lot of the movie.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say. And then instantly, Jack takes him in to jail, right?
That's right, yeah.
Which I guess for drunken driving, we don't know how he got away with that. It seems a bit unfair, but okay. And then it cuts to 4 months later. It's now the last day of school, so we go from super depressing to, yay, it's the last day of school. Okay. Mm-hmm. Which I'm okay with. It explains why, I guess, Joe has somewhat gone through his stages of grief, right? And he's not still crying all the time, I guess. But he is still holding onto the necklace all the time.
Yeah.
Which becomes very important later.
Yeah.
At least to what I want to say, it becomes important later. They're talking about making a movie. And they say Alice Daynard is now going to play the part of the detective's wife or whatever. Which we don't know who she is. Obviously, that's going to be important. We see a scene of a zombie death. It's cheesy, but it's fun. And they're talking about they want to enter for a film festival. And so for me, this whole thing is starting to become about, and remember, the movie is called Super 8. And I will be honest, I didn't watch a trailer before I watched this movie for the first time. So when it was called Super 8, and here kids making a movie, honestly thought this is what the movie was going to be about. So I was happy with that idea. I thought this is a pretty cool idea. Just kids making a movie, that's great. I suppose in more recent times, something like, have you seen Sing Street?
No.
Okay. But that essentially is what that movie is about. Kids making a band and then making videos around the band. And it's good. Like, I do like it. So when I think it's all about kids making a movie, I'm all for it. And I think that this is good. I don't know. Do we want to talk about the kids individually? So let me just quick rundown for maybe people who haven't seen it in a while, because the movie is a bit old now, right?
Yeah.
Joe is your main character, right? He's still sad about his mother. He's still holding the necklace all the time. He does special effects and makeup for their movie.
That's right.
Charles is the director. He's a bit bigger, which I don't really say, except that seems to be part of his character and part of where his insecurities come from. I guess later when he's talking about something. There's Carrie, who does explosions. That's pretty much, and be annoying. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. He was, sorry, kid, but you really had no part in that. I mean, I thought at least, he's going to blow something up at the end, but he
just needed to be carrying all the.
He sets off a diversion at the end. That's his whole point of being in the movie.
There's Martin, who is the one who wears glasses and apparently is not very smart, which is why Carrie keeps referring to him as Smartin in an insulting way. And then there's Gabriel, who is Jewish? I don't know. Like, there's nothing else really about his character. He's just kind of there, and he doesn't really seem to have a specific role. I feel his character didn't get the full development that some of the other characters did. Even his bits of dialogue seem a bit weak.
Yeah, I mean, really, the movie is really about Charlie, Joe, and
Alice, I would say.
Yeah, and Alice.
More than any of the others. Yeah. All right, let's talk about another really great thing, actually. So we see Joe at the home of, like, Charles and their family, and, like, the mom is yelling, come on, it's time for dinner. And while that's going on, right, they walk out, and, like, his older sister is having a fight about, like, what she's going to wear and wanting to go to a party, and there are twins fighting at the table, and the father who's just kind of trying to get through it. That felt very real to me.
Right.
And also just a genuinely nice family where the mom says, "Oh, Joe, we've got food. Why don't you sit down?" He says, No, I'm fine. And the father says, "There's always a spot for you here if you need." And I was like, wow, this is really good kind of quick character development, but also setting the tone for that environment.
Yeah, I like that part as well, actually. That bit really stuck with me just because it was quick, simple. I really like that kind of stuff as well, where they, like, the old adage, like, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And they had a picture, basically, and they didn't really say much other than exactly that. There's always a place for you here. You get the feeling of, like, really small town, and they know what's going on with their family. Like in Stranger Things, the KFC bucket. That was one of my favourite scenes. That's not a spoiler, but that whole bit spoke volumes to me.
Mm-hmm.
I like those kind of things. Anyway,
then we're led to Jack, who's clearly still upset about the death. He's crying. Joe catches him crying. Then they go out to a diner, I guess, and he's talking about sending Joe to camp for a summer. And, you're gonna love it. And I don't know. To me, this felt a bit forced. It feels a bit cliche. And I feel a bit offended as well with the idea of camp is just a way to get rid of the kids. I don't think that's necessarily always the case. But in movies, it seems like that's the way they want to use camp when it comes to the parents talking about it. And it's never the kid wants to go.
I'm trying to think, actually, try to wrap my brain real quick to see if there's a movie where they go to camp where they actually want to go.
Well, obviously, the movies that are about the camp. But if it's a movie where
they're getting sent to one, it's not good.
It's not good, and I don't understand that because...
Yeah, I mean, this movie... What was the other one where they got sent to... I can't think now, but yeah. Getting sent to camp is never... It's movie purgatory, isn't it? It's just like you're getting shipped off somewhere.
And here we definitely see Jack notice that Joe's clinging to the necklace still, which I'm not sure why he's surprised. It's only been 4 months. But then we're kind of introduced to Alice, who's driving her father's car illegally.
Yep.
And I will say this is a great moment because the only thing I knew really about Lewis, the fact that he drinks and he drove this car. So her driving that car up, I didn't remember. And I went, well, isn't that the same car from before? Oh, yes, it is, on purpose. And so now we know they have that connection. And that was really well done.
Yeah.
I will say they get to the train station and they start recording and going through everything. And there's kind of nice touching moment between Joe and Alice. So you start to get the impression that they like each other, which is fine, actually. I think it's done very well. And then they run through a practice run through of a scene.
Yeah.
Right. And we're supposed to be led to believe that Alice is a really good actress. And the thing is, honestly, in that scene, she was.
Yeah.
Like, normally those kind of things for me fall completely flat, going, yeah, she's not as great as you think she is. But in that scene, wow, she turned it on. And compared to everything we'd seen thus far, like, yeah, that really, really worked for me. And so, again, remember, I don't know what this movie is really about. I know it's called Super 8, which has to do with recording things. And I think this is the way the movie is going to go. I will say, I think we've talked about it last time, but also the lens flares.
That's my top of my list. It's like, holy lens flare Batman. Wow. That was crazy for this movie. It was everywhere.
I will say, I don't notice them that much, but there was one in this scene which seemed to go clear across the entire screen that I could not ignore.
There's a part later on where they're in a cave in the dark and there's still lens flares. Like, where's that light coming from?
Yeah, I for some reason, lens flares don't seem to bother me. I don't seem to notice. He gets a lot of flack for the first Star Trek movie too that he did, I think. But
in this, it's excessive in Super 8. It's every 10 seconds. It's all over the place.
That would, I just think it'd be really funny if there's some person in the credits who's like
lens flare guy.
Now we get to the train. So I love the idea that Charles like, oh, we need production value. Quick, there's a train. We can get that in the background, right?
Yeah.
And I like that idea. Oh, we have no money. We need to try and make it work. And then the train crashes, which I will admit, the very first time I saw it, I was just in awe. I thought it was absolutely amazing. This is something that doesn't hold up by viewing 3. Because this train wreck is insane in a way that doesn't really seem possible.
It defies physics.
Yeah. I mean, there seem to be collisions happening between car 50 and car 10 and launching giant fuel containers that explode. There are a lot of explosions.
I said that as well. It really reminded me of Lost, actually, like the opening of Lost. It was taken straight from that. I enjoyed the train crash. I didn't really have a problem with the physics of it. My only problem was, how is that driver still alive after he collided head on with a moving train in a car? And his car's not even wrecked.
It's wrecked, but only on one side.
Yeah, a little bit. It's not obliterated, which it should be.
Which it doesn't quite work considering he did hit it head on.
Yeah, he got onto the rails and was driving straight into it. He would have been cut in half, at least.
I have a problem with it, but I think because I've watched it 3 times. The amount of explosions that happen...
It was really Michael Bay.
There was a train car that flew through a train station, which is essentially just a wooden shack, and that exploded, and there was fire everywhere, and it all seemed to be landing exactly where a kid was at the time, and I'm just not buying this.
No, I totally enjoyed that, but it was nuts. Yeah.
But I was like, wow, that's amazing. They've got that on film, right?
Mm.
But then this is the point for me where the movie starts to lose me because it becomes about something else altogether. I was quite excited about the simple movie of kids back in, like, according to IMDb, '79 making a movie. And I thought that was a cool idea for a movie. And then it becomes something more and something mystery box like that kind of doesn't work for me as well.
Yeah, it becomes more of a kid's Cloverfield.
Yes. Whereas I thought the kids making the movie was the interesting part.
Because I'd already seen Cloverfield, so I was getting the feeling like, oh, this is going to be... So the movie becomes, it becomes a kid's Cloverfield. And that's what I thought it was going to be about. I thought it was going to be them with their Super 8, running around, maybe doing a little bit of kind of real journalism, or incorporating this disaster into their movie and making like so they would be making a movie with real aliens or something like that, and his thing is about value, production value, and he says it twice in the movie, and it's like that. I don't know if maybe that's what he intended in the beginning and it got kind of lost, because I do think this is a semi autobiographical about JJ Abrams' life, because in the mystery box Ted thing he talks about getting a Super 8 camera, wanting to be a filmmaker. I think he's really put a lot of himself into this movie. Don't know who he is, if he's Charlie or which character he is, but
I'm guessing Gabriel. the random guy who's there but doesn't have a lot to do.
Yeah.
And now he's like, look, this was me.
Yeah.
Now look at me.
Now look at me.
No, that's just me being vindictive.
But yeah, so I did, because actually this is completely random and off the subject. I've just had a massive flashback and I can't remember what it was, but I actually did see the trailer for Super 8 way back when it was getting released in the cinema, and it was part of a 99% sure it was a Valve game, and it was on the CD, or not a Valve, it was like maybe Half-Life 2, where you had this CD, and when you put it in, you could play the game, or you could watch the trailer for Super 8.
Okay.
And that's odd, because JJ's in talks to do Portal and Half-Life 2. It's come full circle. I wish I could remember which game it was. I'll look it up after.
I think your point of the kids going around using this to make their movie, which they do to some extent, but actually chasing the alien to try to get the scenes and to incorporate into the movie, again, feels like a much better idea than what we got. But I think that that's because after this point it starts to feel a bit cliche, and this is also where it starts to feel a bit inconsistent. Whereas I felt like the movie up to this point was very, very solid. There's also, I mean, it's a bit pedantic, but if the movie was made in 1979, they clearly made these white things as cubes in a way so that they could say they look like Rubik's Cubes.
Oh, the Rubik's Cubes, yeah.
But that wasn't really licensed as a toy in the US until about 80, and wouldn't have been common knowledge by that point to everyone. So I do kind of have a problem with that. But the cubes are definitely a mystery box.
Are they though? Because they're the ship.
Yeah, but how?
Oh, I mean, if they were like nanobots, then yeah, but I don't know how they... I mean, if the ship's going to just disassemble into a ton of Rubik's Cubes, why not just disassemble into dust like what's that Keanu Reeves movie, the remake of the Day the Earth Stood Still? Is it The Day the Earth Stood Still?
Oh, Keanu Reeves remake?
Yeah.
It probably wasn't. I haven't seen that one. I only saw the original one.
Yeah, there's all nanobots and like little...
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, so I can deal with that. That's fine. But if they're going to break up into Rubik's Cubes, why not just break up into dust instead? If that's what they are, nanobots that would recreate the ship. I don't know how you can build a ship out of Rubik's Cubes.
Well, my problem with that is, does the creature never sleep? Because apparently he has to form it with his mind or her mind. Its mind may not even have gender. I just don't understand how they work, and that's what I refer to as magic.
Yeah.
Oh, it's science fiction, but it doesn't need to be explained, right? And I don't need absolutely everything explained. In Star Trek, I don't need to know how the replicator makes food. I just assume it does. But I feel like there are a number of things with these cubes that feels a bit inconsistent and confusing. And so that's where I kind of have a problem with them. And we'll probably get through that as we kind of continue on. Here's Glenn Turman, who I like quite a lot as an actor. He's been in a few things that I've enjoyed. As a science teacher called Dr. Woodward. And he gives I guess the kids kind of steal the map from him. I was going to say he gave it to them, but they kind of just take it. And they instantly realize it's the schedule for the train, which I'm not sure how they put that together so quickly. And he warns the kids not to talk. while pointing a gun at them, which is what scares most of them, I guess.
Mm.
And then, of course, we meet General Nolek, who is the jerk of the movie.
Cliche bad guy.
Very cliche bad guy. And that's kind of it. They go home and everything's fine. And Joe steals a cube. Of course he does, because we need to have it in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I'm kind of shocked that all the kids didn't take one.
Yeah.
Only one kid took one.
I would have wanted one. I would have taken a bunch of them, yeah.
So he has the only one. And then I think we cut to the next morning and the cube has changed shape. But nobody seems to notice that ever. And that bothers me. Like, there are a number of things, again, with the cubes that bother me, and this is one of them. It changes and nobody seems to notice. It's not really cube shape anymore.
Yeah.
That might be interesting, but we'll not talk about that ever or even notice it.
Yeah.
Which I think is really weird. Now, here's something that you and I both commented before, after we'd watched it and in preparation for this episode. The adults are kind of weak characters. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I don't always understand what they're doing or what their motivation is. Lewis comes home, finds Joe at his house,
Mm-hmm.
seems really mad at him. It's like, you never come back here again. Alice, you can't hang out with him. And I'm kind of confused by that. I think there is a reason, but we have to fill in the gaps to do that, right? So again, listeners, this is not explicitly stated anywhere, but filling in the gaps. I would assume he's afraid of going back to jail, and that if Jack finds out his kid is at Lewis's place, then he might cause problems for Lewis. And I could kind of understand that. I could kind of see that, but that is me filling in the gaps. We're not really told why. So on the surface, all we see is Lewis seems really mad that Joe is there, which to me doesn't quite make sense because Lewis cared very much about his mother.
And he feels responsible for the death of his mum.
In my mind, it would make more sense for him to say, oh, I'm really sorry about what happened. I kind of feel it's my fault. Or just, oh, I'm sorry you lost your mother. She was a great woman. And be nice and say, but your father doesn't like me. You can't hang out here.
Yeah.
And that, to me, it doesn't take any more time, and it makes more sense.
Yeah.
The only thing is it doesn't add this kind of ridiculous Alice can't hang out with Joe dynamic.
It's, when I was watching that, I was confused with what it was as well. But by the end of the movie, it was like, wow, it's really just a lazy way to set up conflict between them. And then to resolve that conflict at the end, like, oh, we're buddies now.
I definitely get to that in my notes, yeah. I got really irritated by that.
That's right. So, like, I totally agree with the adult. Halfway through the movie, I was thinking, are they making the adults bad on purpose so that the kids stand out more? Because it's supposed to be a kids movie, so it's like they're on purpose making the adults dull and just mean. Most of the adults are just mean-spirited and not nice, and you just don't like them. I mean, when they die, when the people die, it's like, yeah, good, But again, it's like at the end, it's like, oh, we're friends now. Something that I noticed at the end, and this is right at the end, which super bugged me about the adults, was when the dad comes in at the end, and his exact words are, he hugs his son. He's like, "I got you," and that's his. It's like, no, you don't. You didn't do anything in this movie. The kids have solved everything. They did it. They rescued all the people. You, the chief of police, did nothing.
He's not the. Is he the chief?
He is, because the other guy. Well, I guess he's.
All right, we haven't quite got to that. We haven't
chief.
quite got to that.
But it's like, yeah, you've done nothing. Why are you patting yourself on the back? It's like,
the whole ending does fall apart for me, and that's definitely something I want to talk about. But I want to just kind of plow through the rest of my notes here, I guess. To be honest, listeners, I have about a page and a half of notes, and you said last night
I have a Post-it.
You're like, you better guide us through.
It is a big Post-it.
It is a big Post-it. But let's talk about the kids again. They seem to always be around where they shouldn't be, filming, and nobody seems to notice for ages.
Oh, like when they're filming the soldiers at the house.
Well, that comes a bit later, but the next part in my notes is they were at the train site, right? They're filming from a distance, but there's a helicopter flying over, and nobody seems to notice these kids filming. Where
And they know they're looking for a camera.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Nolik found the film and was saying, I know you had somebody record it. And yet doesn't seem to spot these kids with a camera. I mean, they weren't there for a short time. It's not like they were running in, doing 30 seconds and then running away. They did all their makeup there. They probably practicing lines there. They're probably there an hour. Nobody noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that to be, I don't know exactly how I describe it. It just seems not feasible, considering what they're doing. Or maybe they're just trying to say they're inept. I'm not really sure. But here is one of our favorite scenes. This is where the sheriff goes to the gas station.
Oh.
And it's like, hey, what's that thing? Oh, this is a Walkman. It's like my own personal stereo. Well, that's just what the world needs, right? The thing is, this guy with the Walkman is the most oblivious character of all time. Because, listeners, some of you may be young. You maybe do not have one of these cassette players of its day. And it might not even be a cassette player. It might just be a radio, honestly, at that point.
Yeah.
But the headphones sucked.
No, they're terrible.
So there is no way that you would be able to tune out noises, especially to the degree of the noise that we have here.
Yeah.
He only notices when the lights flicker, yet the car has
been thrown around and been like chucked onto the ground. The ground would have been shaking. Like, okay, even if you couldn't hear the noise, which is completely impossible because those things are just tinny as hell. But yeah, you would feel it would be like at least like a massive 18-wheeler rolling past outside. You know, it would create some kind of vibration. You at least turn around and go, "What was that?" But no, he's just on his Walkman.
Yeah, it bothers me too because even my grandfather had a radio with like an earpiece that he could put in. It just strikes me, how dumb is the sheriff that he can't figure out what they are? Yeah. I just don't get
but
that.
But that whole thing as well, that's been done in so many movies as well, hasn't it? I can't think of the exact movies off the top of my head, but there's always those scenes where the guy's got his headphones on and maybe there's a massive fight going on in the background and, you know, he's just oblivious. It's almost like a movie trope now where this has to get put in. And
what's funny though is now with noise canceling headphones, it might actually be a thing. Now you could almost use it and it wouldn't seem ridiculous.
Yeah.
But if you're going to set it in 1979, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. And this leads into Jack now taking over the reins since the sheriff is missing and getting lots of strange calls. Things are happening. Microwaves are disappearing. Engines are missing out of every car. All the dogs have disappeared.
All the dogs went to the leftovers.
They apparently all went to a different town.
Oh, they all went in different directions though, didn't they? They just scattered. Yeah.
Here's a problem I have with the town itself. I feel is very inconsistent. I feel like we are at sometimes led to believe that it is a tiny town, and at other times led to believe it's a small city. And I'm not sure how that works for me, because I know towns of the size of what they're saying, and it seems a bit inconsistent both ways to me. Even if, as Jack mentions later, that there's 12,000 people in this town, assuming that is the case, it's still not that big.
About the size of Inverness. People
would notice if a giant alien was ripping out the engines of every car on the lot.
And especially when you get to towns that are that small, like my place back in Scotland. Everyone's so nosy, you know.
Yes.
you couldn't get away with it.
If you heard those noises, people would be on the street looking.
Yeah. I mean, if it happened in New York, maybe you could get away with it, you know, because nobody cares. But yeah, if you did that in my place, the whole street would know about it.
Yes. So I don't buy it.
Yeah.
I don't buy it. You would have to have a lot more missing humans. And they don't even really seem to talk about the missing humans.
Yeah, they're just there.
Yeah. I mean, they do talk about the woman with the rollers in her hair.
Right.
And Jack puts together that the sheriff is missing. But it just feels like there are a lot more people missing.
They do play that down though in the movie. Don't they? He's just gone I don't know what they say. They don't say golfing, but they just say something like, "Don't worry about it. He's just gone to his mum's house," or something ridiculous. Like, no, look, I'm also the chief of police now. You gotta listen to what I'm saying.
You would think. I did notice power seems to go out anytime the creature is near. That's not really explained.
That's weird.
Here's where a lot of my problems come with. I feel like the creature's powers are somewhat inconsistent as well. And this especially goes to when we know about him being in the lab. Because I feel like, if he could turn the power off, then that could have helped him a lot with escaping the lab. If he could control these cubes and change their shape with his mind, that should help him get out of the lab. If he can bond with anything he touches, it seems like he would be touching a lot more people and bonding with them and getting them to release him out of the lab. And there's just too many good powers that this creature has to not...
They don't get used.
To have been trapped for at least a decade. I think they're saying from around 63 on, at least. So for over a decade, it was trapped.
I mean,
even if the cubes could only be used to create the spaceship, I think the spaceship could be formed inside the lab and do some real damage to help him escape.
Or just formed into a gun or something. Yeah. Like I said, I did enjoy the movie, but there were problems with that. I noticed as well, like, he has telekinesis or some kind of force field as well, because when they're trying to shoot him, I even wrote down, like, I understand you can mess with radio waves and, okay, static electricity, and you cause you're like a slider and you cause the power to flicker and things like that. Okay, done. But when they're shooting him, he's bending bullets. And even the tank shells are like bending away from him, like when all the tanks are in town and they're trying to shoot him.
I have a problem with that because I didn't see enough of him, so I couldn't figure out what the heck they were shooting at most of the time. They seem to be shooting everywhere, and it's like, but there's only one creature.
But that was the whole. I think that was the whole point. They did seem to be shooting everywhere because if you notice, the shells are like going like and bending off to the right and left.
I didn't notice that. So
all the bullets are flying everywhere. So he's doing like a Neo, and he's bending space and time. Mm-hmm. Like, again, that would be a useful thing to break out of jail. Unless they had him in some kind of thing where he was sapped of his power. But then that doesn't explain why he has to build a giant magnet. At the end, if he can bend bullets, why does he need to build this stupid big electromagnet to suck all the metal into the water tower at the end? That's the part that really lost me. And I'm sure you're going to talk about that soon, but yeah, the telekinesis bending bullet stuff kind of blew my mind. I was like, whoa, I mean...
Well, that would add one more power to to the alien.
Because that's exactly why you didn't know what they were shooting at, because, yeah, they weren't shooting at anything. It was just going haywire.
Oh, okay. It just seemed to me, as I'll probably say later.
And it did blow a hole in the wall, and the kids got a direct hit.
All right. I'll get to that. Let's rush through some of this quickly. So, Jack's quickly aware that the ham radio guy has a point in the meeting, says, oh, we need to listen in on this. So he gets his buddy at the police station. Oh, you've got a decryptor, right? Sure. So they put it together, and then rather than just absolutely having somebody listen to it, the one guy's taking a complaint while he's listening in, and, oh, hold on for about half an hour while we all get together and discuss this. Then, like, every police officer is around one desk suddenly, and nobody else is around. It's just inconsistent storytelling for me at that point. Everything is busy, yet they can all sit around to think. It didn't make any sense to me. The Air Force finds Woodward's house, but not that trailer at school, and doesn't even seem to look at the school in his office at the school
until the end.
Yeah, it just seems, if you know he's a teacher, you would go there as well. I would imagine
so. I would imagine so.
Then we get the father saying that essentially the same thing to Joe now. It's like, you need to stay away from Alice. Your mother liked Lewis, said he was a good guy, but he's not a good guy.
Yeah.
And I hate him. I don't know. I also kind of find the reason for that is a bit weak as well, I feel. But
yeah, that whole thing was dumb. Like we said, the adults are plastic in this movie for sure.
Here's another time where Joe sees something and it just ignores it. He sees all the dirt being piled up in the shed near the cemetery. Because he gets mad, he hangs out in the cemetery. There's all sorts of crazy stuff there. And he goes, wow, that's weird. And then is never touched on again.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's going on. Yet the guy in the cherry picker who was working on the transformers to repair the electricity saw a stove fly over a fence from the salvage yard, and he at least looked. But the kids seem to be not curious about anything.
Yeah.
All right. Nellick talks to Dr. Woodward. Woodward is uncooperative. He says some very kind of vague things here. He says, he's in me as I am in him. I'll be watching you too. As though it almost felt to me like he was saying, even if you kill me, I will still be part of the creature. I'm not really sure what they're trying to say with this weird psychic connection that seems to happen between the creature and Woodward and possibly other people. I don't understand. And it did make me wonder, because later we see the creature eating a human. I mean, does it bond with everything it touches? Because that would be bad.
Yeah. Imagine you go to McDonald's to get a hamburger and oh,
yeah,
I know how that cow feels.
yeah. I think, yeah. Which I think that would possibly be what it took to make me vegetarian. And that's kind of what makes it odd that this creature is eating a human later on.
Because he hates them.
You could get rid of that, and then I wouldn't be... That's fine to have it just kind of capture humans to get them out of the way, but to eat them now, I'm not quite as nice feeling as I was before. But I suppose I'm jumping ahead.
E.T. didn't eat people, that's for sure.
So I suppose I'm jumping ahead again, I'm sorry. Alright, he's uncooperative, so Nellick has him killed.
Yep.
He wants information, but rather than keep him around, because he's irritating, he just kills him, which makes no sense to me. We'll be talking about that in a future episode, I think. Yeah, so I really had a problem with that, and this seems to be a real problem, I think, with a lot of Abrams stuff as well. Somebody has the information I need, but they will be killed off or disappear or for some reason completely vague so that I don't get the information I need to keep the mystery box alive.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Then we get a scene with Joe and Alice where Alice finally admits what happened. So Joe's mom went in to cover for a shift because her dad was drunk and didn't make it into work. Mm-hmm. And that's it.
Yeah.
He didn't pull a switch that dropped something on her. He wasn't inept in a way that actually led to her death. He just missed his shift and she covered for him.
Yeah.
Now I can understand Lewis's guilt, but Jack being that angry because he missed a shift and so she had to cover and that's why she died seems a bit much.
Yeah, I was expecting more from that part of the story, and that's maybe my mistake. But I was expecting at least some kind of affair between them, or
I was expecting that as well too. Like the first time,
yeah,
I was expecting that, and when I didn't get that, then I was still confused.
And then it turns out like, oh, I missed a shift, and
actually, if it had been an affair, it would make much more sense why they want to keep Alice and Joe apart, right?
Yeah,
that would make much more sense.
Yeah,
but it's not. It's simply because Lewis missed a shift and Elizabeth died on that shift covering. It doesn't even sound, from the way she described it, doesn't even sound like Lewis called her directly, like, oh, can you cover for me? She got called in
by
from
the boss.
Work.
Yeah.
So I feel that that's weak motivation there. But it leads into the cube launching itself through the wall, through his wall, and panning right to the water tower so we know what's where it went. But they go, oh, that's crazy, and then do nothing. They don't chase after it. They don't wonder where it goes. They don't talk about it. Yeah. It's just gone.
Yeah. Right.
What? And this is again part of where I say the cubes are a mystery box. It's not just how the cubes work or what they are, but it's almost as if the cubes wipe themselves from people's memory once they go. But they don't, because Jack saw them at the train and was talking about them with the sheriff later. So I just don't understand. I don't understand these kids that are so not curious about something.
I mean, if they're hyper-magnetic and that's how they got attracted. I mean, because it's a magnet, yeah. That's.
I'm going to assume so, but I do have a problem with that. But we'll talk about that.
I mean,
later.
if it attracted that cube from that far away, you would have ripped everyone's refrigerator out of their home in the same. If you flick the switch and be like, okay, today's oh, it's 10 o'clock, it's time to switch on the thing to grab today's metal stuff. Boom. You'd have sucked everything away. Not just the cubes.
Okay, yes. That's exactly my point, but I'll get to that right at the end. Alright, so Lewis gets angry at Alice because he's drunk. Says, why don't you run away like your mother? Which is the whole extra dimension that was not explained and we didn't really need. So she takes off on her bike, and then he chases after her drunk in his car, crashes, and that's when the creature shows up to take her away.
Yeah.
Seems a bit...
convenient?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say. And of course, convenient that Lewis had to be drunk so nobody would take his story seriously when he explains that, I think. Well, I guess it's not convenient because he's always drunk.
He's always drunk, yeah.
But this leads into our... the next bit was the love triangle. Charles admits why he's been so kind of mad at Joe. It was like, oh, I'm mad at you because you like her, and I did this whole movie thing to get to know her better, which is that's a very elaborate plan to try to get to know someone better. And he's like, oh, the thing is, I'm more annoyed that she likes you, right? Which, okay, I guess, but do we need that? I didn't really need that, but then I think that whole scene was really there so that we see the footage that was not good, but then we see the creature come out of the train.
Yeah.
In their footage, and that's what we're led to believe. And then all of a sudden the town is being evacuated because of a fire that the Air Force set. It does, to me, seem quite a bit excessive.
Mm-hmm.
Considering the size of the town and the fact that this is Ohio. This is not a California fire where things get that out of control that quickly unless there's a drought happening.
Mm.
And the Air Force was bringing in tanks, brought in 10 semi-trucks. It brought in so much stuff. Nobody seemed to notice. It just seemed way over the top for a fire.
Yeah.
And if they were evacuating this town because of this fire, they would also have to evacuate all the other towns around it. If you look at the map they showed of the area when they're talking about the dogs missing and Dayton being nearby, there are a lot of small towns right around there that would all have to be evacuated as well. And if they weren't, it would seem awfully suspicious.
Yeah.
Because fire doesn't just head in one very funneled, focused direction. It spreads, right? So I found that as a way to get people out of town to be a little bit ridiculous. And I wasn't quite sure what their strategy was. Because they talked about baiting the creature, but how did they bait the creature?
That wasn't explained, I don't think.
And I don't know that they had anything to bait the creature with. What, humans?
Mm.
I mean, then evacuating them all to your base, I guess, your temporary base of operations would be the bait, I guess. But then why are you going into town? Because it's going to go where the humans are. And I mean, I think baiting it with the cubes would have been the smart thing, but I don't think that that's what they did. I felt like that was another thing that was just kind of thrown out there and then not followed through.
I mean, if anything, the only bait that actually worked was the bad soldier guy. The alien came for him to kill him, basically. He was the bait.
Well, actually, yeah, I do want to get to that. So just before that, though, Lewis confides to Joe that he's seen the creature. So now Joe and his friends have to go. They decide, they're going to go save Alice, right?
Yep.
Jack escapes from the Air Force by hitting some guy, and there's just kind of no one else around, and he just sees the tanker and realizes they've been setting the fire, makes it explode with one shot, and the whole thing, that whole bit just seemed a bit ridiculous. But we get to the point where the kids get into the dungeon, they call it, which is Woodward's information. And even they say, why hasn't the Air Force found this? I'm like, well, kids, you're one step ahead of me here.
Yeah.
And inside, it's just packed full of stuff when they open it, right?
Yeah.
It's just tons of films and folders. So there must be just tons of stuff to get through. But of course, the very first thing that they find is all the stuff that they need, right? So we're watching the video and we're hearing some of what the kids are reading. So the creature... All the creature wants, according to Woodward, is to recreate his ship with the magic cubes. But again, why can't he? Because we see a scene of them kind of being formed and then they fall apart. Why? Is the creature constantly being given electric shocks or something to keep it from focusing? We don't really know.
Oh, I thought that was them trying to.
That they were doing it.
They were doing it. I think the creature wasn't even in the same room. They were trying to recreate it. That's why they were keeping the alien, I guess, because as soon as they learned how to make the cubes stay assembled, then I guess they wouldn't need him anymore.
But what's stopping the creature from, if he has telekinesis, stopping from bringing the cubes there? Or, as we saw, tentacles were shooting out through an open window. Well, if it's a mental thing, what's stopping?
Yeah,
I don't understand.
But no, that scene was definitely just them trying to get it to work, and then it was falling apart, and they were failing. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so again, here's where I go. Why, in my notes, I'm noticing, like, if the creature has a psychic connection, why doesn't he touch, like, everyone possible? And Woodward says Nellick turned the creature into an enemy that wants to hurt humanity. So now I'm kind of like, well, now I'm not sure I want the creature to escape. This is a creature that we will learn later will eat a human. All right.
And has been eating them. Like we only see him eat one. I'm sure he needs more, but he's got a big body. I'm sure he's got quite a high metabolism.
Here's where just everything for me, just I've starred all of this. There's reasons, like, these are all like important points that really got to me. So the Air Force finds the kids in the school. I don't know why it took them so long to do that. The one guy takes the necklace away from Joe, which has made no sense to me.
That's just me.
This would be a nice present for my wife with this picture of a random woman and her baby. No, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Jack conveniently is told by a cop that the kids were grabbed. He happened to hear it on the radio, is what we're told. He gets the full story from Preston, who is the kid who doesn't really seem to have a purpose. He's like, first you need to watch this film, which I don't know how he got it because he wasn't with the kids in the... Oh, it must have been the Super 8 film, right?
Yeah.
Which sort of shows the creature crawling out.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he immediately saves Jack, who hates Lewis, stops him from being taken away. Is like, we're going to go get our kids. Why would you pick him?
You've done nothing but hate him the entire movie.
You've got 6 police officers around who trust you. Yeah. No, I'm going to take
the drunk guy. Yeah.
The creature conveniently shows up, takes out the bus, right? Yeah. This is what you were saying before, and this is where I think this becomes important. So he takes out the bus. My thing was, why is he taking out the bus? Now, you think that he was going after Nellick.
Yes.
But how does he know Nellick is there?
Maybe he's touched him. Maybe he's got a psychic connection with the guy.
But if he has that, then why is Woodward explaining
this? Yeah. I would be lying if I said I knew what was going on.
Yes.
I would be filling in gaps left, right, and center.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I was like, well, it does kill him, so maybe that's reason. But it seems awfully convenient that it catches a bus in motion just to do that.
Yeah.
Well, here's my real problem with this. Nellick's been walking around town for days.
Yeah.
Why do you wait until this moment?
Sitting duck, yeah, for a few days.
If your number one goal was, I want to kill that guy, I wouldn't wait around for a couple days and then get to it.
Maybe he was savoring it. Oh, he was busy building his magnet. That's why. Him and Jesse.
No. I'm not going to be on board with that. I'm just not. But of course, the guy with the necklace dies so that Joe can get the necklace back again.
Yeah, no point taking it in the first place at all because
the film store guy falls asleep in a car because apparently he'd been smoking marijuana, and then the kids go, drugs are bad. I guess just to get that message out there, but I was totally confused by that entire interaction, and it, in my opinion, should have just been cut from the movie, or he should have just been okay and driven them to town. It was just a waste of a scene, that one. The kids run through a war zone. Now you say that the creature was bending the trajectory of the bullets and stuff. I just, to me, it just looked like they were going every which way. Not just shooting every which way, but driving every which way. It was almost like they couldn't see the creature, so they were just shooting at everything.
Yeah.
If your idea is to destroy the town, well, I'm sure you've got better things in the Air Force than a tank
Yeah.
to take out the town. It just seemed really weird. If they were that concerned, if they really wanted to blow it up, I'm not sure why they didn't bring a bomb in. I mean, yes, you're going to have to explain that, but you're also going to have to explain why you blew up a bunch of houses with tanks too. So I don't understand what they were thinking there. I mean, did you see the creature in that scene? Because the thing is, I didn't notice the creature in that scene, and I went, what are they shooting at? I don't even see it there.
I think you don't see it, but you see it in the same way that you've seen it, inverted commas, in the past so far. You don't get to see the actual alien until the lair. No, until the bus.
I already saw it on the bus.
The bus.
This is after the bus.
Yeah, I think you see it in the same way, as just like it's moving in the trees, and it's not really visible, and they're just shooting all over the place.
Seems ridiculous. I'm just gonna say, to me, that seems absolutely ridiculous.
It was messy, and not only that, it's like the kids take a direct hit from a tank, and all it does is it breaks his leg or something like that.
It knocks over the wall, which breaks the one kid's leg, I think. Yeah. So, okay, I'm just gonna say we both agree that whole scene seems a bit ridiculous.
It's definitely messy. That's how I would say it. Yeah.
Here's where we get our favorite scene of Lewis and Jack making up in seconds. You know, I was just there to apologize at the wake. Oh, yeah, well, you're all right then. And that was it. Yeah. I've never really liked you, but now I'll like you, I guess. Now, finally, Joe goes, oh, you know what? I saw crazy stuff in that cemetery. I bet we should go back there. So it takes the explosive guy. He's like, it's going to be dark down there. You have any sparklers? Sparklers are not a great way to light your way in a tunnel. He could have a flashlight.
Yeah.
Can we just give the kid a flashlight?
Yeah. No, but he has to blow stuff up. He has to set things on fire.
It makes so sad. No, it just makes no sense.
Yeah. How many sparklers? I'd like 30 seconds of illumination, please.
All right. Now we see that the creature's been building this giant, crazy machine. And you say it's an electromagnet.
Yeah, it definitely has to. It has to be, yeah.
Has to be. I don't think it's not really explained.
No, it's not explained at all.
So for me, the first time I watched it, I went, what the heck was that thing? Huh. Because in my mind, like you, I thought the creature had telekinesis. And that at the end, it's pulling everything using like mental powers. So I felt that whole weird machine was kind of a waste of time. If it is an electromagnet, that makes a little bit more sense, but it also doesn't, which I'll get to. Well, you've already kind of hinted at it, but I definitely want to talk about that a bit more. So that bothered me. Then, of course, Alice is alive because, of course, she has to be. Mm-hmm. But then there's the sheriff and the girl in rollers, which is the only two other people we know outside of the kind of electrician who we knew were taken. And they're essentially just there so that the creature can attack without attacking the kids. Would you say that that's valid? Because even the first time I watched it, I went, as soon as the sheriff got taken, I went, well, that's the whole reason he survived, right?
Yeah.
And I found that really irritating. Now, there's a weird bit where the alien picks up Joe, and Joe says, I don't know, I put the creature bonds with Joe, sort of. Is that a good thing? And Carrie, the explosives kid, is like, what? And I was like, yeah, I kind of agree. I don't know what's going on there. The creature was attacking everyone, and then all of a sudden went, Joe, you seem like an alright guy. And just kind of picks him up and looks at him. Doesn't actually, I feel, touch him in a way that would make him bond, right? In my mind anyway, and this is filling in the gaps, clearly, but it would have to touch perhaps skin to skin to make that connection. But I could be wrong with that, so maybe it is, but I don't get any impression from what happened that Joe is actually mentally bonded in any way to the creature.
I saw it in the eyes. That was my take on it. Because this is just my theory, but if you look at the alien, because the alien's got like 4 arms or something like that, yeah? Yes. If you look at the alien, what was striking was its eyes. The eyes look really human.
When it's looking at Joe, finally, like the human-like eyes come out.
Yeah, yes. And so that even made me wonder, like, is that humanity from another dimension or something like that? Some other mystery box. Like, do they have a connection to Earth? Are they future humans evolved? But I got the feeling that it wasn't even a binding, like they had to touch. I just felt like they could see into your soul kind of thing and read you like a retina scanner, I guess.
Okay, I mean, it's definitely filling in the gaps. I'll take that. I just don't... After something like E.T., where you can see obvious ways that you know that they've bonded in some way, I'm not getting it in this one at all. I just get, he looks at Joe looks at the creature, and says something like, I get it, bad things happen, essentially. And the creature puts Joe back and goes, yeah, we've both had a rough time of it, I guess.
Sorry I ate those people.
Yeah.
But I was really hungry.
I probably shouldn't have bonded with them first.
Maybe he didn't look at them.
So I don't know. The whole thing to me just felt really forced, and I wasn't buying it. So now we see all the metal at the end. The creature is at the top, putting the ship together with its mind, I guess, and all the metal is being pulled to the tower, but not all the metal. Yeah. It's very random.
It's a selective magnet.
Yeah. There's 10 cars in a lot, and it pulls one.
Yeah.
You know, I'm pretty sure Jack has a gun. It's not pulling the gun, and it's pulling all these. There are metal signs everywhere. It's because
it does pull. It pulls some of the soldiers' rifles, doesn't it?
But only. It feels to me like only some
like
of
two of them. Yeah.
I don't know if that was a budget concern, but it made no sense to me, because if it's pulling everything metal, then it should pull everything.
The entire thing, yeah, through the walls of houses and the diner that's nearby.
And so again, that's very inconsistent. Like, in fact, it even pulls.
It pulls the necklace, and silver.
Oh, wait.
Silver isn't metallic.
Well,
metallic.
Maybe,
isn't magnetic.
Maybe Jack bought a cheap necklace. Maybe it isn't actually silver. I will say, the one thing that really irritated me, the necklace definitely does, but the thing that really irritated me was the cubes get pulled out of a semi-trailer, but the semi-trailer, which should also be pulled, does not get pulled. And if you want to say it's too heavy, that's fine, but it should at least be tugged in some direction if it's that powerful. But then, Jack and Lewis show up, too late to do any good. Jack hugs Joe, and you said he's like, oh, I've got you now. And
yeah, this is his exact word. I got you. Like, shut up, Dad. You did nothing.
Way to show up doing nothing. And then, of course, after that is when the necklace gets pulled in a very dramatic fashion, as Joe's like clinging to it and is pulling, but it's not pulling him away.
No.
So he could hang on to it. Yeah. And at that point, here's what really bothers me. It is pulling nothing else. It's almost like the creature is, I really like that necklace. But it gets sucked into just the massive amount of, like, Joe finally lets go, which I guess is symbolic, right? Yeah. But it's too much. It's too much. I am of a firm standpoint that symbolism is great when it adds to the story, but symbolism should not be the story. Mm. And I feel that that's all that's being done here, is symbolically being pulled away and constantly hanging on to this memory, and now needing to let the memory go. And it's kind of weird what happens too, because it gets pulled to the massive group of metal at the water tower, and then when the ship takes off, it just crushes everything, which I don't understand. But I'm also thinking, well, the necklace might still be there.
Yeah.
And if I was Joe, I'd probably go look.
Yeah.
That was just weird.
I don't know how they powered the ship. That was the one thing that bothered me. Maybe it's got a missile fusion or something, but
it can put it together with its mind, so everything else is...
Oh, yeah, could you imagine? That would be so fun. It's like, I built the ship. Oh, but how do I take off now? How do I power this thing? You know, it's like, you can build it, but where's the power source?
Yeah.
Certainly not solar power, because it happened at nighttime.
The music at this point just gets really ridiculous and way over the top. And here's what really bothers me, and I feel that this is a constant thing with Abrams' storytelling. There's no real resolution. We sort of get that Jack is going to be nicer to Joe, I guess, and that Joe and Alice can be friends now, and they hold hands, and that's it. Great. End of movie.
Yeah.
And then we see the kids' movie.
That was awesome.
But I say it was still, in my opinion, more interesting than the actual movie that we saw. Why do they have such a garbage train explosion, though. Like, it looked terrible. And they were going, like, they're making really terrible sound effects with their mouths. It's like, he made an actual explosion. Why are you adding weird sound effects with it?
I think maybe it's just an Easter egg to, like, his old, like, when he was a kid. Maybe that's what they did when he got his Super 8 camera and he was making his own movies, you know?
But I will say that even their movie seems to be full of conveniences and kind of zero resolution. And it just paralleled Super 8 so well. I don't know. So overall, I just feel like there are way too many conveniences and weak storytelling.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it's necessarily plot holes. And we may have jumped ahead on this one simply because of the weak storytelling. But I will say again, by the third time I watched it, I didn't mind it as much. Would I recommend? I'd recommend it to kids.
Like I said, even though all the bits that bothered me, I kind of enjoyed it. I thought it was good. One thing I noticed when I was watching it, I was like, please stop saying mint. How many times did they say mint in that movie? Oh, that's mint. That's mint. It's like swingers, your money, you know? It was just like, stop saying mint. Stop saying mint. They just said it so many times.
Again, I'm suspecting that Abrams must have said that as a kid.
Another thing that I noticed, this is a weak connection, but JJ Abrams seems to always put religious names into his movies. Like in Lost, you've got Jack Shepherd. His dad is Christian Shepherd, and then in this one you've got Joe Lamb. His name is Lamb. It's like, again, very biblical. It's a lot of his main characters. I want to go back and check his other movies and see if the main characters all have some kind of biblical reference, because that's 2 for 2 now. Maybe check. I mean, Star Wars you can't really count because it's in space. I don't think they have Joe Lamb, Sith Lord. They might.
He could have made it that way.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, Joe Lamb and Christian Shepherd. There you go. But yeah, so I would recommend it. It's a decent movie. Like I said, it's a good popcorn film if you don't think about it too much. If you've not seen it, and we've spoiled it to death.
Yeah, there's no point. Well, good luck. I don't think there's much point watching it now.
Or if you've seen it and you want to maybe recommend it to someone because they like Stranger Things and you think they'll get some kind of nostalgia kick out of it. What I noticed about this movie is JJ Abrams needs to take some pointers from the Duffer Brothers, because it did not push the nostalgia buttons as good as Stranger Things does.
No, but I don't even really need nostalgia. I think that a lot of people...
I think he was going for that, though.
I think so, but I think a lot of people put down Stranger Things for how much nostalgia it has. But for me, it doesn't feel like a lot of nostalgia. It just feels very accurate for the time that it's set in. But I think that the one thing that Stranger Things does very well is I feel like the town has a feeling and it has a size. Whereas this town, I think it's called Lillian, Ohio, seems very inconsistent. Sometimes it feels like the tiniest town ever, and at other times it seems like a small city, and that doesn't quite work for me. It doesn't quite ring true. There are too many things that are kind of, as I said, inconsistent.
Yeah.
And also just character development. Like, even with Stranger Things, even the adults, even though they have much smaller roles, some of them.
Oh, they're great characters, yeah.
They're great characters, and that's something that I feel is missing from this one. We don't get a lot of great characters. It's more about events than it is about character development. Yeah. Again, not sure if this was the best for plot holes, but at best I can say that I feel it has some weak storytelling elements to it, and it's just not my thing.
Yeah. But no, yeah, when you said watch it, I thought I was going to hate it, but I was pleasantly surprised, so... Gaps filled or more gaps created?